Just going to talk a little bit of technicalities today with a standard setup on the lens, I guess you would say. So with the 28, I generally have it set at 5.6, the aperture 5.6. I find it gets enough of the context in focus that I want. It's not completely blurred out, but it gives a little bit of separation between my main focal point and like what I'm trying to highlight in the story and then everything else around it. Like I still want a lot of context around my subject and I feel 5.6 does a good job at just slightly softening everything else around my subject. Whereas, when I bump up any higher and go 8 and above, I feel like too much is in focus and there's there tends to be a bit too much information there. So, and then with the shutter, I generally have it, most of the time it sits between I'll drop down about a 60th, sometimes a 30th a second, and then try not to have the shutter too much above 250 of a second. And that's pretty much how I like to run most of my shots. And then when it gets too dark is when I'll adjust the aperture and open it up. Very rarely during the day I'll have it more open at 2.8, unless there's something specific I really want to highlight. I want my subject to pop just a little bit more. But for the most part, at that 5.6 mark, and from anywhere from a 30th of a second up to 250th of a second, sort of that's like the sweet spot. I feel like any slower, there's too much. If it's under 1/30th of a second, you're getting too much blur and it will just start to look messy. And then any higher than that, I feel like it looks like for me it freezes the frame just a little bit. I don't know, it just doesn't look quite right. But then when it gets darker, obviously you don't have that flexibility, especially with shooting with film. I only shoot 400 ISO. I rarely go above that, and very rarely push my film. I used to push it a lot, but now I just leave it stock. So when I'm shooting at night or inside when it's darker, only being able to go to 2.8, I feel like that again is that sweet spot. It's equivalent to f5.6 during the day. My focal point's enough in focus and it's highlighted, but the rest, because it's darker, it gives the context to what I want to highlight in my photo. And again, because it's so dark, sometimes I'm pushing half a second on the shutter, and that's handheld. I'll try and brace myself as much as possible, but I'm sort of running the risk with those shots. And most of these photos are just for me. They're not professional photos that I'm shooting in that sort of dark environment. So I'm happy to have a bit of blur to give the photo character, to truly show what's happening at that time. Again, giving it context. The main point I'm bringing this up is I don't just want to be locked at f6, and I don't want to just be locked at 2.8. But those two aperture settings highlight my style of storytelling best, I think, for when it's dark and when it's daylight. And those shutter speeds, where it gets really slow, is experimental. That to me is what tells the story, rather than, I've said it before, rather than just having the ability to just max out film ISO or if it's on a digital camera, max out ISO. I'd rather things be imperfect, but it captures an essence of reality and warmth and realism, just the realism of the situation, than having it sort of artificially set and perfect. And I sort of feel the same with f6 as well during the day. It's obviously, it doesn't come with that weight of too much motion blur from the shutter being slow shutters, but again, I feel like those two those two aperture settings and the shutter speeds that fall within those spaces have started to morph a style for myself and how I express my storytelling just for life. And that might be different for everyone. For me personally, I was looking at faster speed lenses, but 2.8 is that sweet spot. I still want that context, and I feel like when you get below that, there's a lot of subject separation, and for me, that's, well, it works for a lot of people. It doesn't work for me. It's not what I'm looking for. I still want that environmental setting. I want there to be clarity in what's happening around my subject. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about those settings and how it's unintentionally, it was sort of like at the start, just like I was forced to shoot like that, and I found I liked the results at 5.6, and then been shooting a lot at night now when it's dark, especially during winter. Well, when it was winter, sorry, and yeah, experimenting with those slower shutters and forcing myself to play in that sort of field has morphed my style of shooting, and it's come into play on when I use my digital camera as well. I want my, obviously there'll be a difference, but I want my images to be transferable and seamless when they're together. I don't want to be like, oh, that's clear, like that image it's pitch black. Like when I took the photo, it's pitch black, but then I just maxed it out in post and boost the ISO, and I was able to shoot it without having to adjust the aperture or shutter. I still want to carry that style over, so I'm still playing within those constraints even when it's on digital. So that's Bart walking across the back of the camera. He didn't knock it, which is pretty good. So anyway, yeah, just wanted to bring up how shooting on those two aperture settings has forced my style. And Bart wanted to chip in too, so thanks, mate. Like and subscribe. Godspeed.